Let me see some comments in the chat box. So I see intellectual wellness means investing in my mind and intellect. That's Abielu Feyimi. I hope I'm not killing that. All right. Intellectual wellness means the ability to have a mind that is up and doing at all times. Interesting. Mary says, to me, it means engaging in conversations and activities that spur me to think and utilize my brain in the most utmost way. Emmanuel says intellectual wellness means keeping your mind active, exploring your creative abilities, and developing a strong mental capacity. That last bit is very interesting, and I think we might even touch on it eventually. So here's my question to you, Mrs. O. You did talk about social media, and I think that many people say today that that is the real problem, right? That social media has driven people to distraction, it's affecting the way people think and all of that. So how is it that you are claiming that it has helped you?
First of all, I control my time on social media.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not mindless. I don't sort of sit and that's the first thing, control. Two, I'm very mindful of who I accept as friends, and who I engage with, and who I follow. I'm very intentional, very strategic, and very deliberate. So if I was to for anybody in the room, if I say World Economic Forum, if you follow them, you know that you're going to be getting valuable information that is rooted in research, based in research, and you're going to learn something very important just by listening to their social media posts. So you have to be very selective about who you follow. For me, that's it. And and my best time, I'll tell you, I'll confess, is between midnight and 1:30 a.m. So before I go to bed, it's my nightcap. And I take in what is intellectually stimulating. I don't do silliness. I don't do, I'm the best in sliced bread. Sometimes I look, but I don't spend much time there. And it was on social media, just to help, that I found out, through one of the World Economic Forum, because of the data statistics that you shared, that, do you know that there are certain countries in Europe that now give, when you go to see the doctor, they prescribe walks, nature, going to the spa, going to resorts, going for a workshop, going intellectually stimulating activities. That's part of your therapy. They prescribe it, they give you vouchers, and they pay for it. So this is telling you that even in this world, distracting as it is, you need to learn how to control what your eyes see and what your ears hear. And maybe this is where I will now end. I remember several years back, I went to a 5-day workshop, and I picked up something that I practiced for a few years, and that was shutting down for 2 full days every month, just shutting down everything. And it became my thinking time, reflecting time. And there's so much growth that comes during those times, because you are focused, my phones are off, I am not communicating with people, but I'm reading, I am spiritual wellness, praying, and I'm just thinking about the future and designing what I perceive the future should look like. So when you look at what makes that keeps my mind sharp, I focus on what it is that is important and strategic. So I choose to engage with social media on a very strategic level.
Yeah, I like that, how you tied it up as engaging on a very strategic level. When people say that, oh, but they throw things at you and, and all of that. And I say that social media, many of those apps work by algorithms. They will throw at you what you have engaged with. If all you do is click on some funny sort of stuff, the algorithms will continue to point you in that direction, right? And then you find that you're keeping your attention on brain numbing things and you're wondering why you're not responding quickly. Let me just say really quickly that brain wellness or intellectual, but brain is a bit broader, but intellectual wellness is similar to physical wellness in that it is what you put in that you get out, right? Garbage in, garbage out. Yeah, if you eat junk, your body will respond to the junk. If you eat right, your body will respond accordingly. It is the same way with the mind, right? So I like that bit about being strategic about what it is that we consume as far as our mind is concerned. And it's interesting, and I don't know if, by the way, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. As the conversation goes on, we'll come to them. I just wanted to point out, right, because Mrs. O, if you don't mind my saying this, Mrs. O is nearly 70, and it makes it more interesting to have this conversation because research actually says that age slows down your cognitive functions. There's a decline in memory and learning, decline in attention span, decrease in the ability to multitask, challenges in the brain structure and function, increased risk of dementia, and so on and so on and so forth, right? So really the question is what makes the difference? What makes the difference is that the same way that your physical, Mrs. O, I'm coming to ask you what you do specifically, but the same way that the physical body, right, finds it difficult to move when we haven't kept it active, it's the same way that the brain declines in function or in ability, in capability when we don't use it, right? Whether you're young or old, yeah? Age, of course, has a natural, again, the older you get, the older your physical body gets, but with exercise, you can still function effectively. It is the same thing with the brain, with your intellectual states, right? If we don't use it, right, we lose it. That's it. I like that statement. You don't use it, you don't use it, you lose it. Just keep that in mind. I remember I was watching, I'm very particular about the kind of movies I watch, right? There's some movies I watch just because I have had a hectic day and I just want to shut down. So it is not the movies that actually intentionally dull my mind. Not dull it in that sense, but helps me to relax. However, on a regular basis, there are certain movies that if I'm going to watch a movie at all, there must be a movie that is making me say, what is likely to happen next? Right? And it's engaging my thought process and connecting things and all of that. And I remember somebody said to me one day, we're watching a movie together. And I said, but why are you watching this movie? That is difficult to even tell where it's going. I said, that is exactly why I'm watching it, because it is difficult to tell where it's going. And so my mind is active and I'm trying to calibrate what might be happening next because of X, Y, Z. And then when it switches in a different direction, I'm recalibrating again. So it keeps your brain active, right? So back to you, Mrs. O. Yeah, I am at least 15 years younger. Okay, not that much, but okay, about that. Right, so you have, your words are probably have more, what's it called? More weight. So what do you do to keep your mind active? I know you've talked about your 2 days of quietness and, but what are those activities, other activities that you do?
It's a good question. And by the way, when I've answered it, I'm going to ask you that question as well, because I'm curious. For everyone in the room, Dr. Yejide Anibaba, in the School of Politics, Policy and Governance, is called the Smart D.
Oh my goodness, Mrs. O.
Smart D. This woman is super smart. So you are going to also tell me what you do. But let me tell you, on a serious note, there's a quote I'm going to share that sort of captures it. And it says, anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. And I think that is one of the secrets, to keep learning. And as you know, I'm engaged in quite a lot of what I call change communities.
Yep.
People, communities that are in the forefront of transforming certain sectors in the economy. And they rolled up their sleeves. They're not complaining. They're just, yes, learning makes you younger. I agree with you, Mary. It does. And I think the engagement, there's something that is doing to my brain cells and my brain muscles. I'm convinced. So it's constantly I'm constantly thinking, juggling, multitasking. I don't laugh at me, but the other day, it happens once in a while. I was in 2 meetings, Zoom, video on. So I had my ear, I use 2 devices. So one, the device was listening to something in one ear, and I was listening, because I know you've done it as well. But I had to be attentive.
Yeah.
So you can imagine my brain was. And then I had a 3rd meeting, and that was when I said, no, I can't do it. I can't enter a 3rd meeting. But on a serious note, I'll tell you the practical steps that I take. 1, to stay current. I have deep conversations with people who stimulate me intellectually. And I think we shouldn't underestimate the importance of that.
Yeah.
And I say this because there's a quote by Tenor Dicey who says, "Stay positive and happy. Work hard, don't give up." This is intellectual stimulation now. Be open to criticism and keep learning. And then ends with, surround yourself with happy, warm, and genuine people. Now, there's somebody here in this webinar who we do life together. We spend hours in cafes. And I find that a cup of tea with a lovely dessert or a plate of salad does incredible stimulative work on your brain. We can have conversations, breakfast, lunch. I've done it, London Business School. I sat in a cafe, a group of people I had breakfast with, they left. Another group came from the school and I had lunch. And a 3rd group came and I had dinner. I didn't leave the restaurant. And all the conversations were different because there were people from different parts of the world that I was engaging with. So as I'm reflecting on all of this, I wasn't doing it because I'm thinking, keep my mind sharp. But I'm finding that these practical steps that give me joy, and I think joy keeps you intellectually stimulated.
Yeah.
So work on your joy quotient.
Yep.
And surrounding your people. I mentioned silence. And then another thing that I do a lot of is walking. I find walking stimulates my brain. I don't know what the connection is, but when I walk, my brain is happy. And I think that's why they're giving out prescriptions for walking, actually for walking in the national parks in the United Kingdom, going on walks. So data, the evidence medically is that walking is good, not just for your physical body, but for your psychic and for your mental capacity. So strengthening your mental capacity means that you've got to be ready to keep pushing. And I will close with this. So I've mentioned silence, I've mentioned walking, and I try to walk at least 4 times a week. And I have 20-minute walks, 1-hour walks, 2-hour walks, depending on the time. And I have music that I play for those and I come back, I'm able to write with clarity. I'm able to engage conversation. And then I download on my walks, I download strategies and blueprints. So that when you now come to meetings and you sound as if it's not that I haven't spent much time, no, I've just walked. And I think maybe that's where I will, I think you've said enough.
Absolutely. Mrs. O, that walking is like magic. If you don't walk in this room, let me tell you to do it. Sometimes I get lazy about it. The moment I'm trying to focus or think and it's not working, I walk out of my door and I take some steps, 3,000, 5,000 through my, compound. And when I come back, I am super refreshed. It's like the ideas start coming like that, right? So clearly, what you might have noticed already is that a combination of things are important.